had dreamed of something better for Ren. But with a spore. 8 years, the father sank into his chair. 8 years watching others evolve their beasts while our foolish investment takes away his hope for. He didn't need to finish the sentence. A spore couldn't evolve its rank. There were no cultivation techniques to study, no improvement paths to explore, no secret techniques to buy. Many had already tried. Richer people with much more support. The only one who succeeded was labeled as the worst failure. A fortune spent for an almost useless gain, 20% strength. Since that day, the spore has been the symbol of failure. Ren would spend 8 years learning things he could never apply, his surroundings a constant reminder of what he couldn't achieve. 8 years of mockery, being the school's laughingstock. 8 wasted years, because what could he learn about cultivation and evolution with a creature that couldn't even evolve? Sadness led the father to reminisce about the past, a past that Ren had illuminated. "Remember that day?" he asked suddenly, his gaze lost in the candle flames. "When I couldn't find the medicine demanded by the kingdom, because it was depleted due to severe mana contamination from that year's hoard, and I had to go out searching for a mana poisoning cure and also found that plant you ate. We thought we had been blessed." She nodded, taking his hand. How could she forget? They had been trying to have a child since their 20s. Almost 3 decades of broken hopes, watching their friends form families while they remained alone. They had lived a frugal life, pooling their resources to form a happy family, interested only in one thing they couldn't obtain no matter how much they accumulated. Almost 1 million, an incredible amount for citizens of their rank. They'd thought about using the money to cure their infertility, but they were already so old. They had given up. But that trip to the outskirts. The plant I found in the outskirts, mistaking it for that high-quality 100-year-old sweet root, he continued. When you ate it, I thought I had killed you. You were so pale, so cold. And a week later, I felt like I was 20 again, she smiled sadly. And the following year we succeeded without trying. Our miracle. They fell silent, listening to the muffled sobs coming from Ren's room. Their little miracle, the child who had given them so much life and happiness when they had almost lost hope, now faced a cruel destiny. It's as if the dragon gods were mocking us, she murmured. They gave us a child when we were already too old, only 2. To watch him suffer, he completed, squeezing her hand. The candles, almost spent, continued burning, their flames reflecting on the school contract on the table. In the adjacent room, their 10-year-old son cried silently, a small gray spore floating beside his pillow like a constant reminder of his fate. The feast they had prepared with so much love slowly cooled on the table, untouched, while 2 elderly parents wept for the cruel turn their life's miracle had taken. Ren lay on his bed, tears drying on his cheeks while rage gradually replaced sadness. The spore floated nearby, its weak gray glow only serving to enrage him more. Go to school like this, it was a cruel joke. He could already see the next 8 years unfolding before him like an endless nightmare. While other children would learn to evolve their beasts, to awaken new powers, he would sit there with a creature that couldn't even mature properly. Maybe it would be better to do what other unfortunate, rotting ones did and... No. He couldn't. He loved his parents and they loved him too much too. He needed to find something to distract himself. He turned to the small bookshelf beside his bed, where he kept his favorite book, worn from countless readings. The Second Contract of the Wandering King. His fingers traced the worn cover, following the image of a legendary warrior who had achieved the impossible. According to the story, the hero had found a mystical medicine deep in the forest, something that had allowed him to form a second contract with a beast. It was just a tale, of course, in all recorded history. Only the current king and a dozen legendary warriors had managed to obtain a second creature contracted. And none of them would reveal the way to achieve it to the masses. But Ren was still a child, still naive. Ren looked through his window toward the dark forest stretching beyond the outskirts. The medicine from the story. What if? But the thought died as quickly as it arose. His father, with his mature iron rank plant, had returned half-dead the only time he ventured there. And he had real advantages. A great 40% extra vitality, an adult's strength and speed increased by 20%, along with all his other attributes, a modest control over plants that allowed him to detect dangers and defend against some monsters, plus years of experience. And what did Ren have? A useless spore and a miserable 10% increase to his childish strength. He couldn't even lift the heavier flour sacks in the kitchen. How did he expect to survive in a forest full of monsters? The spore flickered weakly, as if sensing his desperation. "Why you?" he whispered bitterly toward the creature. "With such low chances, why did it have to be you?" Silence was his only answer. In the dining room, he could hear his parents talking in low voices, their voices laden with worry. He couldn't bear it anymore. He couldn't be the cause of their pain, the pathetic end to all their hopes and sacrifices. But he couldn't change anything either. Once the contract was formed, it was for life. The spore would be his companion until the day he died, a constant reminder of his failure. Unless... His eyes fixed again on the dark forest beyond his window. Even considering it was suicidal. The mana poisoning would kill him in less than 3 days, with such a weak creature in his body. But as he thought about the school contract, about the years of torment awaiting him, what was worse? Dying while trying to change his destiny or living 8 years as the school's laughingstock? His parents, maybe he could make them happy too. Ren opened his worn book once more, his fingers tracing the illustrations of the dragons. It was believed that all creatures could become dragons by finding the right path of cultivation. According to the book, the Wandering King found much information alongside his medicine. It wasn't just any medicine he wanted. It was in the heart of dragon territory, where mana flowed so densely it could be seen in the air. Ren opened his worn book once more, his fingers tracing the illustrations of the dragons. According to the book, the Wandering King had found lots of information alongside his medicine. It wasn't just any medicine that Ren wanted. It was in the heart of dragon territory, where mana flowed so densely it could be seen in the air. The Wandering King had traveled for months, crossing the lands of each dragon lord. The red dragon, whose scales burned like the desert sun, ruled over all fire beasts and reptiles. Under his domain, even tiny lizards could breathe flames. The blue dragon reigned in the ocean depths with his majestic fins and gleaming horns, where every marine creature swore loyalty. The green dragon, covered by a thick layer of vegetation, was lord of the deep forests, where every beast and plant danced to his will. In the eternal skies, the white dragon commanded all flying creatures, while the black dragon governed the beasts of night and shadow. The book showed a particularly detailed illustration of the articulated dragon, whose domains were filled with giant insects and creatures with exoskeletons. Each evolutionary line, each egg color, was represented by a dragon. Scholars denied the correlation between dragons and egg colors due to variations diverging from logical branches in egg outcomes. But that wasn't relevant knowledge for the child. Ren paused at a page that had always intrigued him. The dragon of decay, lord of fungi, spores, and all creatures that fed on decomposition. Reigning above, feeding and creating all creatures of his evolutionary line. "At least dragons respect their subjects," he murmured bitterly, looking at his pathetic spore. "Unlike humans." But the dragons and their territories were far from the human city, and for good reason. Humans had chosen to settle in this area precisely because the mana was so scarce that great beasts found it repulsive. They had no interest in it. For humans, this was their only protection. Only the weakest creatures, expelled and rejected by the stronger ones, prowled near the city, in the plains. But it was very rare. They had to be injured, dying, to dare leave the forest. Without mana, Hunger would catch them and they would die soon. The mana here, in human territory, wasn't nearly sufficient. And yet they were deadly dangerous, maddened by the hunger that mana scarcity provoked in them. Like wild animals seeking their next meal, they attacked anything that moved. Ren shuddered, remembering the stories his father told about the forest outskirts. How the beasts there had an empty, desperate look. How they ignored their own wounds, driven only by hunger and lack of mana. Even herbivorous creatures turned aggressive, attacking any source of mana they could find. But that was just the outskirts. In dragon territories, mana would be Ren's worst enemy. With a beast of this level, he could barely enter the first iron circle with the lowest-ranked beasts. Fortunately, the ruin his father found was right at the beginning of the bronze ring, and he could enter through the middle of the iron ring. Something like that could be possible even for him, right? Sure, he wanted to go to dragon territory and find a miracle like obtaining 2 beasts. However, he would have to settle for medicine that could expel his spore from his body, or something similar. Something like that could be close to the medicine that cured his mother. Dragon territory, or even the silver ring, were out of consideration. If he ventured too deep, the mana would consume you quickly and... Ren slammed the book shut, his heart pounding. Would he really go to that forest? Even thinking about it was madness. With his useless spore, mana might not be a problem, as he probably wouldn't survive even his first encounter with a beast. But while listening to his parents, muffled sobs through the wall, what other choice did he have? As night fell, determination had awakened more than courage in Ren. His stomach growled. The aroma of sweet root stew still floated in the air, more tempting than ever as his hunger had returned now that he had a clear purpose. He slipped out of his room like a shadow, the spore floating silently behind him. The floorboards creaked treacherously under his feet, but years of sneaking out to steal midnight snacks had taught him where to step. In the kitchen, the feast his parents had prepared remained untouched. Ren wrapped large portions of bread with stew in clean cloths, also packing several wild berries. His father always said berries helped keep the mind clear when fatigue struck. From the tool cabinet, he took his father's smallest kitchen knife, the one used for delicate work, and a worn canteen. Rope and his father's most precious map. He hesitated a moment before also taking the flint for starting fires. It wasn't much, but it would have to be enough. A noise in the hallway made his heart stop. Footsteps. He snuck back to his room and got into his bed just as the door opened. Ren, his mother's soft voice. Darling. Ren dove under the covers, grateful for the darkness hiding the packed bag under his bed. The spore settled on his pillow, its weak gray glow perfectly matching the moment. I'm so sorry, my love, whispered his mother, sitting on the edge of the bed. Her hand, rough from years of work but always gentle, stroked his hair. If we could have gotten you a better egg. It's not your fault, Mom or Dad's, replied Ren, and for the first time in hours he wasn't faking the emotion in his voice. It was just bad luck. Would you like some stew? It's still warm. Tomorrow, promised Ren, hatting the lie but knowing it was necessary for his mission. Thank you for cooking it. She leaned down, kissed his forehead, and the familiar aroma of spices and love almost broke his resolve. Almost. I love you, little one. I love you too, Mom. The door closed softly. Ren waited, counting his heartbeats, until the footsteps retreated and the house fell silent. With movements practiced during his afternoon escapes with friends, he tied the rope. His bedroom window overlooked the back garden, a drop of barely 2 meters. The spore watched silently as he secured the rope to his bedpost. If you're going to follow me on this journey, he whispered to his companion while shouldering his backpack, you'd better at least not get in my way. The night was clear, illuminated by nearly a dozen moons. From his window, he could see the dark forest beyond the city limits. Somewhere out there lay his only hope for a different future. He took the rope in his trembling hands. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad. and he began his descent. The story doesn't end here. Make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to witness what happens next, only on Fatebound Realms. Still next time, have a lovely day.